It's daybreak on Arise News, and it's time for the press preview. But first, look at what's on the front pages of the papers. We start, of course, with our sister publication, This Day newspaper. This Day has on its front page, Kwara rally. At Kwara rally, Atiku laments APC's Misrule, pledges to revive Kainji Dam, says all discovering the North healthy for development. And then just by the side of the logo, or just below the logo, APC were not against beavers. And then just on top of the logo, Arise Presidential Town Hall Series 3 to focus on education, healthcare, and others. And the picture there below the headlines, Transcorp Hilton wins World Travel Awards.
And taking a look at the Punch newspaper here, the screaming headline says, electronic results transmission, beware of fraud. Opposition warns INEC, APC recants. The riders there says, Electoral Commission under pressure over BVAS. That's the PDP saying that APC has hidden agenda in 2023 elections, Labour Party alleges. And of course, Adamu says, I am concerned about poor telecoms network. You can find that story on page 2 of the Punch. Other, stories making the rounds here. The horrible queue we hate to see. Marketers warn of possible petrol price increase. The question is, isn't there an increase already from 165 to 175 and now 185? Another here says 3 days to hand over. Oyetola appoints 30 PS. Kidnappers in army uniform abduct Lagos passengers. The probe begins. More stories making the rounds there on the Punch newspaper. Just over there we see on top at the tip of the paper says economic downturn hits manufacturers, oil and service firms. Find out more on the pages of the Punch newspaper.
Well, the nation is leading with petrol scarcity. NNPC Limited marketers differ over lingering petrol scarcity. And exactly 90 days to Nigeria's general elections. Appeal Court reinstates Binani Bwacha as the Damara Taraba candidate. And PDP G5 governors won't bow to intimidation, they say. The Christian Association of Nigeria tells Christians to vote their conscience.
All right, let's look at what the Leadership newspaper is, Leadership Friday is saying. It says, APC Muslim ticket, Dogara, Achuba, 6 others disowned Babachir Lawal over support for Obi, says he can't speak for the group to make position public soon. We can't force anyone to support our candidate. That's from Labour Party. Atiku Tinubu take campaign to Kwara and Ebonyi. Then just below that, AG destroys 3,000 seized weapons. And then Qatar 2022, after first round of matches, African teams yet to win any match yet.
And take a look at the Guardian newspaper here. It says decline in oil gas output hampers growth amid recession fears. That's the story making the rounds on the Guardian this morning. Here we also see pictures after the floods, picking bits, pieces of ruined investments and a livelihood. You can read the big story on page 4 and 5 on the Guardian newspaper this morning. Still talking floods up there. Here it says prepare for high cost of food, increased hunger. Farmers warn Nigerians. That's actually expected with farmlands submerged by water. Also headline stories making the rounds here says Senate committee clears Umana, dismisses 480 billion naira fraud allegation. And Sonwolu at LSSTF town hall meeting promises improved security. You can find those stories and more on the pages of the Guardian newspaper this morning.
The international papers. This is the Financial Times. Zelensky vows Ukraine will thwart Russia's attacks on power networks.
All right, and talking about international papers, we look at newspaper. Student visa crackdown set to spark cabinet row. Yep.
And taking a look, of course, still on the foreign scene, Financial Times here. It says Zelensky vows Ukraine will thwart Russia's attacks on power networks. The riders there say a war of strength and resilience, territorial trade-off ruled out, Crimea's fate fought with peril. Still talking economics here, Chinese banks unleash $162 billion in fresh lending to struggling property groups. That's the story you can find on the Financial Times today.
The Independent says FIFA now says rainbow colours allowed, and collapsed system leaves 140,000 awaiting asylum.
The Daily Telegraph. Johnson and Truss in planning rebellion. Well, yeah, I guess it's time now to invite Emmanuel Bello. Good morning, Emmanuel. Good to have you join us. Yes, I was going to say the morning show on Daybreak. All right, let's look at what this day is saying. It says at Kwara rally, Atiku laments APC's Misrule, pledges to revive Kainji Dam. And then just by the side of that this day, APC were not against beavers.
Good morning once again. Kenneth, welcome back. It's Friday. And the papers are closing the week, the working week, with a lot of very, very punchy stories. Yes, and this one on the front page of this day is really, it's a big story. It's a good one, and it's looking good for Atiku is reporting the rally they had in Kwara yesterday. Everyone saw what's happened there, the crowd and all of that. But then it is what they get to say at these rallies that sometimes make for good news or for big news. And so he's talking about APC Misrule, which has been the talking point of the PDP throughout their campaigns. They keep pointing to what's gone wrong with the party. It's interesting. I don't know if you noted it, Indy, that they actually had a moniker of the Otoge chant. It's now Osua. Otoge in Yoruba is I think it's enough. Or rather, we're done. And now the Osua thing is we're fed up. So he actually you can't be in Kwara and not talk of the Sarki dynasty. He told the Kwara people that look, you were given the impression that the Sarki dynasty was in charge of this place and that no one else was getting anything, but that's not true. After 4 years or so of the APC regime, I'm sure all of you are already tired, and so the Osua chant, took over, and so it's dramatic. We're going to see a replacement of the Otoge chant with the Osua. We all remember how Otoge was almost like a revolution in Kwara just a few years back, and now it is the Osua chants that are taking the place. Just shows you how deep or how dramatic this this electoral or this presidential election season has really become, especially at the campaign grounds where we see all sorts of things. But beyond the drama are the issues too. He says he's going to revive Kainji. He's going to deal with some of the roads. It's of course it's the time for those kind of promises, and we'll wait to see if the APC will be able to push back on that. Another story you noted is the APC pushback on the issue of beavers. The other parties are accusing the APC of not wanting a technology-based kind of election, which is strange. It's amazing that the other parties are the one actually who are fans of an election that is going to be based on technology. And the APC is finding himself actually defending itself and saying that's because of the utterances of the party chairman, who was raising what was some people would say maybe some kind of reasonable concern about the performance of technology, of machines in places, for instance, where you don't have network and all of that. But the other parties coming out together and saying that, well, it's the PDP in particular saying that APC is scared of an election that is not rigging prone, almost trying to push back and say the APC believes in rigging elections, and that all the other parties are saying not this time. We must go the way of technology. That's best practices all over the world. So it's instructive that APC is actually the one defending itself, or actually raising some concern about technology, while the other parties are saying, no, we want beavers, we want an election that is going to be technology based. We want a situation where you can cast your vote and just go home, and it doesn't have to go through some kind of manual process that might lead to some manipulations.
Politics now. On the Nation newspaper here, the screaming headline says, NNPC Limited marketers differ over lingering petrol scarcity. Other papers you have where marketers are warning Nigerians of, the increase in petrol prices. And I'm asking myself, do we not have an increase already? From 165, we have moved to 175. From 175, we're at 180, 185 now. And that's just, let me call it normal territory. On the outskirts, you're getting petrol for over 200 naira. What do you make of this development?
Well, the confusion too is about what's going on. The question everybody is asking is what's going on, and the Nation newspaper captured it very well to talk about the fact that there are dissenting voices. The NNPC is not telling us much, and so the marketers differ over. That's the right word. They differ. Some say it's because this is caused by landing costs and all of that. Others said, well, it's because the product itself is not available. A few weeks ago, we blamed the flood in Kogi State and all that, especially here in the FCT. But the floods are gone, and this problem has persisted. The whole of this year, we've actually lived with this. If you look at it very well, we've lived with this problem on and off. And at the heart of it is what looks like an extraordinary silence from the authorities, from NNPC, from the federal government, as if it's now an intractable problem. No one knows what's going on. You wake up every day and you just buy the product at whatever price you find. Yesterday I bought for 180, just outside here, this place. So it's the sort of thing that you find, and it's defining the kind of thing that we're seeing now, especially as we head into December, into the holiday season, into Christmas. These are familiar sights, but of course, like you noted, a very ugly sight. But now the biggest problem is we don't seem to have an agreement on what the problem is right now.
Daniel, as we mull over the price of petrol, farmers are also saying that citizens should prepare for high cost of food and more hunger.
Well, Kenny, that's the one that concerns, I think, almost everyone, and but it's a huge problem. And you're right; it's also part and parcel of where we find ourselves as a country. We're not in a place where we may have to just stand on food stamp and the rest. The sort of thing we see in other countries that are worst hit by the food shortages and all of that. So alongside the problem of fuel scarcity and the other kind of scarcity you have is this huge problem. The president spoke about it the other day when he was unveiling the Naira. He couldn't escape talking about the fact that the federal government may have to go into its strategic reserves to be able to make food available to the populace. Well, it's a very sad thing because in a country where we have no business having food shortages because of the kind of land we have, the vast opportunities in agriculture. But then if you look at the ravages by bandits, by insurgents in areas where we even have to pay levies. The other day the president was talking about everybody going back to farm. And then some farmers reminded him that, look, to even get to this farm, sometimes you actually pay levies, even for harvesting. So in some areas in the country, you can't even go into those places. So those are the sort of things that have defined this administration, especially going into its twilight, with people thinking that, look, everything it has promised in the past, they couldn't get it done. So yeah, it's a huge problem and one that concerns everybody. People having to make decisions on whether to buy fuel now or to actually use the money to buy food. Those are the sort of decisions that households are making on whether to cut down on the particular thing that they're eating. Some, I'm sure, doing without certain food items on the menu just to deal with the crisis of the shortages that we're having, both in funds and, of course, now in the food itself.